There are many videos about generalized anxiety disorder on YouTube, but wouldn't it be great to have everything you need to beat anxiety in one video? Well, that's what this video is. It's going to teach you a lot of what you would learn in therapy, and even give you practical exercises to do that can lower your anxiety in the long term. You're going to learn why you specifically have GAD. You will learn about the anxiety cycle and how to stop it. You will learn tools and techniques that can bring down your anxiety when it's out of control. You will learn to spot common thinking errors and how to deal with them. You will learn CBT tools that will help you deal with negative thoughts. You will learn how to change the very beliefs that are driving your anxiety. And you will learn how to treat your anxiety in a structured and manageable way. Now, it's not possible to teach all of this in a 5-minute video, so this video needs to be quite long. So save it or add it to your favourites so that you can keep coming back to it like you would a reference book. By the end of this video, you will have a good, deep understanding of GAD and many of the tools you need to overcome it. So, let's get started. So, why do you have generalized anxiety disorder? The reasons people suffer from GAD vary, but common causes are learned behaviours from parents who have anxiety disorders, not feeling safe as a child or having to take on responsibilities beyond your coping ability, traumatic events, prolonged stress, and there may even be a genetic predisposition to GAD. But why do you have GAD? I'm going to show you a tool used in CBT that will not only help you understand why you have GAD, but also form the basis of how you can overcome it. All the forms used in this video come from a great website called getselfhelp.co.uk, who have kindly given me permission to use their forms in my videos. There are links in the descriptions to all the forms used in this video. So this is called a formulation. I will show you how to fill in this form by explaining each box and giving some examples. Past experiences are ongoing or repeated events and conditions that shaped who you are and how you think and behave. It could be an overly protective parent who was always worried about you being ill as a child. Conversely, it could be neglect by parents or conflict or domestic violence in the home. Or a parent with a long-term illness. It could be living in poverty or difficulty starting school or college. In Amanda's case, her mother was an alcoholic and her father had left them. So at a very young age, she had to fend for herself and look after her younger brother. She never knew if or when her mother would come home. This was the start of her worrying. Next, critical incidents. Critical incidents are more specific and are things that have had a big impact on you. This could be something like witnessing an accident or a violent event, or being a victim of violence or an accident yourself. It could be a major life change like divorce, losing a job, being diagnosed with a major health condition, or losing a loved one. In Amanda's case, it was the loss of her grandmother, who had looked after her when her mother was drunk. Past experiences shape your beliefs about the world and yourself, and are reinforced by the critical incidents. These could be beliefs like, I am unable to cope, I am not strong, you can't trust people, people will always let you down, I'm going to die young like my mother. A common belief in GAD is I have to worry to stop something bad happening, or I have to have certainty, or I have to plan everything meticulously. One of Amanda's beliefs is that she has to worry to make things work out. She also has an intolerance of uncertainty. We can link this back to her past experiences, when she would be uncertain whether her mother would come home and if her mother was safe. And since her mother would eventually come home, albeit drunk, it seems worrying did work. She also worried whether she was capable of looking after her brother. But since nothing bad happened to him, again, worrying seemed to work. In addition to Amanda's grandmother dying while Amanda was still a child, Amanda's mother died at quite a young age, leading Amanda to believe that she would also die young. The beliefs you develop from your past experiences and critical incidents shape the way you think, behave and feel when you have a trigger. A trigger is a specific event, situation or stimuli that triggers your anxiety symptoms. It could be an internal trigger like a thought or a physical symptom, or it could be an external trigger like an argument, struggling to pay a bill, or a reminder of a past event. Amanda's latest trigger was that her husband was going away on business. Let's look at how Amanda dealt with this trigger and see if you can see how her beliefs caused her to deal with it in this way. Amanda's first thoughts were, what if her husband doesn't come back? What if he is really having an affair? What if the plane crashes? How will she cope? This made her feel very anxious, so to cope with the anxiety, Amanda sought reassurance. She asked her husband to prove he really was on a business trip. She insisted that he phone her 3 times a day. She checked out the safety record of the airline that he was flying with. Can you see the link between these behaviours and Amanda's past experiences? Remember, her father went away and didn't come back. She never knew if or when her mother would come home. And her grandmother died, leaving her all alone, with responsibilities beyond her coping ability. The problem is, these behaviours just reinforce the beliefs driving the anxiety, making her even more anxious. This high level of anxiety causes physical symptoms like a racing heart and dizziness, which trigger new thoughts like I'm going to die young like my mother. This new thought will start a new cycle of anxiety with its own behaviours, emotions and symptoms. So now you have a good understanding of Amanda's formulation, do one for yourself. Use the form linked in the description. If you can't print it out, just copy the boxes on a piece of paper. Fill in your past experiences and critical events. Work out what your core beliefs are. And then take at least one example of something that recently triggered your anxiety. And fill in your thoughts, behaviours, emotions and physical symptoms. When you have done that, see if you can link your thoughts and behaviours from this latest trigger with your beliefs, early life experiences or critical incidents. If you're comfortable sharing what you learned from this exercise, tell others about it in the comments. For some of you, this exercise may have been quite emotional, so you may want to take a break before we continue. Save or bookmark this video and come back to it tomorrow. But if you would like to carry on, next we're going to talk more about the anxiety cycle and how using CBT can stop it. In part 1, we saw Amanda's anxiety cycle. If the anxiety cycle is not stopped, it just goes around and around, making the anxiety and worry worse. Now you can't do much about the physical symptoms, as they are just the body's natural response when your brain tells it that you are in danger. It's also hard to control your emotions, although I will give you some tools later that can help. So CBT focuses on your thoughts and behaviours, because thoughts can be challenged and behaviours can be changed. And by combining these, you can stop the anxiety cycle. So let's look at the thought part of the anxiety cycle first. CBT identifies a number of thinking errors in anxiety. These are all or nothing thinking, which is viewing situations in extreme terms without considering the middle ground. Everything is good or bad, wrong or right. Overgeneralizations, making broad, sweeping conclusions based on a single event or limited evidence. These often include absolute words like everyone, always, everything. Mental filtering, which is focusing exclusively on the negative aspects of a situation while ignoring the positives. Mind reading, assuming you know what others are thinking, often without any evidence. Fortune telling, predicting the future negatively, assuming things will turn out badly. Catastrophizing, expecting the worst possible outcome or viewing a situation as far worse than it actually is. Emotional reasoning, believing that because you feel a certain way, it must be true. Personalization, taking responsibility for events that are outside of your control, or blaming yourself for things that aren't entirely your fault. Here is an exercise for you to do. It doesn't matter if you get it wrong. The purpose of this exercise is to make you aware of your own thinking errors. What sort of thinking errors are Amanda's thoughts? Pause the video and try. So, how did you do? Next time you have a common worry thought, write it down and try to work out what type of thinking error it might be. Practice doing this. It allows you to look a bit more objectively at your thoughts, which can help reduce the power that negative thoughts have over you. Now let's have a look at the behaviour part of the anxiety cycle. Here are some common behaviours in GAD. Avoidance, reassurance seeking, over-preparation, putting off tasks or decisions due to the fear of doing something wrong. Checking. This could be constantly checking doors are locked or appliances are turned off, or could be checking yourself or loved ones for signs of illness. All these behaviours are called safety behaviours, because you are trying to keep yourself safe from something that you fear. But they are very damaging, because they tell your anxious mind that you are in danger. So it sends you more worry thoughts. Write down safety behaviours that you commonly use. When you catch yourself using them, just say to yourself silently, safety behaviour. This will make you conscious of them so you can try to resist them. Next, we're going to look at a tool used in CBT which will help you deal with the worry thoughts and reduce your safety behaviours. It's called a GAD Worry Thought Record. You will find a link to this sheet in the description. Here is how to use it. In the first column, write the situation or trigger that started your worrying. At the bottom, there are prompts to help you. For Amanda, the trigger was her husband going away on business. In the next column, write what physical sensations you experience, and rate the intensity of your emotions, which is probably anxiety. Amanda writes anxiety 90% and muscle tension and butterflies in her stomach. In the third column, write what thought, image or worry came into your mind. What was it that disturbed you? For Amanda, it was the thought that her husband might have another woman, or the plane may crash. In the next column, let's dig deeper into that initial worry. What do you worry that this thought means? What are you really responding to? Are you worrying about worrying? The next two questions will really get to the source of your worry. What's the worst thing that could happen? And what's the worst thing about that? Amanda worries that the fact that she thought her husband might be having an affair might mean that he is. There's no smoke without fire, she thinks. She is worried that she will be thinking about him being with another woman, or worrying that his plane has crashed. The worst thing that could happen is he doesn't come back. And the worst thing about that is that she will be on her own and unable to cope. Now we have got to the belief that is driving the worry. Amanda believes she cannot cope on her own. This is not unusual in GAD. Often people with GAD seek reassurance or approval from others in everything they do, because they do not believe in themselves. And the more they do this, the more it reinforces the belief that they cannot do difficult things or make difficult decisions by themselves. Now you have indulged your worry thought, it's time to challenge it. And again, the form gives you some prompts. What would someone else say? Is this fact or opinion? Is there another way of seeing it? What advice would you give someone else? Maybe you could use the worry tree, which I'll teach you later on. Is my reaction proportional to the actual event? Amanda thinks about what her friend would tell her. She would say her husband loves her and has never cheated. She knows that travel is just part of her husband's job. She knows that it's not a fact that her husband is having an affair. She realises that this is just the emotional reasoning thinking error. She knows he always comes back safely. So although this exercise is useful, people with GAD usually know their worries are probably unfounded, but still struggle to stop worrying. So when you first start doing these exercises, you are still likely to try to take some action to try to bring temporary relief from the anxiety. These are the safety behaviours I mentioned earlier, and usually involve some sort of avoidance or reassurance seeking. So in the next column, write what you did. Amanda asked her friend if she thought Adam was having an affair. She told Adam that he must call her 3 times every day while he was away. She googled the safety record of the airline and suggested Adam change to an airline with a better safety record. And she asked her friend to come and stay with her while Adam was away. The problem with these safety behaviours is that they reinforce the beliefs that are driving her anxiety. Her anxious mind is thinking, well, if he's not having an affair, why would she be asking for a friend's opinion? If flying is not dangerous, then why is she checking the airline's safety record? And asking her friend to come over is reinforcing the underlying belief that is driving all the others, the belief that she cannot cope on her own. So if you have used a safety behaviour because of your latest worry, don't beat yourself up about it, but do write it down. The reduction of safety behaviours will have the biggest impact on lowering your anxiety. But safety behaviours are so habitual, they are really hard to stop. So I will give you some things that will help later. But for now, go back and look at your thought challenging column and ask what you could do differently. Amanda thinks, well, I know he loves me and we're not having an affair, so maybe he doesn't need to call me 3 times a day. A tip here is to ask someone who doesn't suffer from anxiety what they would do. When Amanda's friend's husband goes away, he just calls her once a day. So Amanda tells her husband, forget 3 times a day, once will do. We will come back to this form later, but now I want to give you some tips and tools to help you resist safety behaviours, because remember, less safety behaviours means less anxiety. So Amanda has done well to reduce the number of times Adam has to call her, but she can't stop worrying about him being in a plane crash. She wants to Google about plane crashes again, but she knows it's a safety behaviour, and she knows that that will make her worry worse. So when you're in the grip of anxiety, what can you do? Here are some options. One is mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness meditation takes a lot of practice, but it is a great way of quietening your mind. In mindfulness meditation, you accept any thoughts or feelings, just observing them and letting them pass. This video would be too long if I taught you how to do it, but if this is something you would like to learn, I have a tutorial on it which I've linked above. Another option is hypnosis. Hypnosis can be a very powerful way of bringing your anxiety down. I've used it through my own life to help with various worries. There are lots of relaxing hypnosis videos on YouTube, and I have a whole playlist specifically addressing various types of anxiety, which again I've linked above. But if you want hypnosis that is very specific to you, then you can write your own self-hypnosis scripts, and I have a series on how to do that, which is also linked above. Another useful tool is worry postponement. When you can't stop worrying about something, you choose a specific time that you will dedicate to worrying about it. You set a reminder on your phone or your virtual assistant. This creates a sort of pact with the anxious part of the mind, so it gives you a break knowing that you will worry properly later. When the time comes, go for it, have a good worry, but often you'll find it no longer seems as bad as it felt earlier. Another tool is the worry tree. There is a link to the worry tree in the description. First you ask, what am I worrying about? Amanda is worried about her husband's plane crashing. Then ask, is this a current problem or a hypothetical problem? Well, a plane crashing is clearly hypothetical. If the worry was something like, how will I get the kids to school without Adam here? Then you can make an action plan. Ask what, when and how. So Amanda, who can't drive, plans to call a friend to see if she can take her kids to school. She also plans to set the alarm for 7 to make sure the kids are ready a bit earlier. With an action plan in place, it is now easier to let the worry go. Whether you're able to have an action plan or not, you now need to change your focus of attention. This doesn't mean distraction. Go do something that needs doing or something you enjoy. Use whatever tool helps you resist employing safety behaviours. So we've looked at ways of challenging thoughts and ways to deal with the strong emotions or anxiety that drive the harmful safety behaviours that will reinforce your maladaptive beliefs. But to really beat anxiety, you need to change those maladaptive beliefs. The best way to do that is with a CBT behavioural experiment. For this you will need this behavioural experiment form, which again is linked in the description. If you're not sure what belief is driving your worry, take your worry and ask, what's the worst thing about that? And then ask again, what's the worst thing about that? Amanda's belief is that she cannot cope on her own. This is quite a deep-rooted belief and may be hard to challenge, so she may want to pick some easier ones first, like she believes the plane will crash. But as it's such a good example, we will stick with this one for now. So Amanda writes, I'm not capable of coping on my own. Next, rate the strength of the belief. She 100% believes this. What is an alternative belief? She writes, maybe I can cope sometimes if I really have to. So for the experiment agreed, write what you are going to do to try to test the belief. This is the hardest part of CBT because you are going to face your fear. But it is also the most powerful. If you disprove these beliefs a few times, you will be surprised how much it can lower your anxiety. So Amanda writes, I will manage everything without asking my friend to stay over. Next, what do you predict will happen? What is it that you feel will happen? Amanda writes, I will oversleep, the kids will be late for school, or they will forget their books and get detention. If something goes wrong, I will just have a panic attack. For how sure she is that this will happen, Amanda writes 90%. This next question is important. Safety behaviours I need to drop during this experiment. If you use safety behaviours, then you're not really testing the belief. Amanda knows that she will be tempted to call her friend for advice on everything, which is a safe behaviour because it reinforces the belief that she's incapable of coping on her own. Next, how will she judge whether the belief is true or not? She writes, "The kids get to school on time without forgetting everything, and I don't go to pieces if something goes wrong." Now it's time to carry out the experiment. She decides not to ask her friend to stay over and spends the next 3 days managing everything herself. What happened? Well, the kids got to school on time and they didn't forget anything because she made sure everything was prepared the night before. But as sometimes happens in experiments, things did go wrong. And this is the time to be really conscious of your safety behaviours and do your best to resist them. On the Tuesday, her daughter fell over and cut her chin. It was bleeding quite badly. Amanda panicked and wondered what to do. She thought she'd better call her friend and ask her. Then she thought, no, stop. That would be a safety behaviour. I will decide what to do. So she thought about it. I need to put pressure on the wound with something clean and then get her to hospital. But there was another problem. Her son wasn't due home for another half hour, and he doesn't have a key. He will be left on the doorstep on his own. Amanda thought about the worry tree. Is this a hypothetical worry or a real one? It's real, so it needs an action plan. So Amanda spoke to the next door neighbour and asked if her son could stay with her when he got home. And she phoned her son to tell him what was happening. Amanda called a taxi and took her daughter to the hospital, where she had 2 stitches in her chin and everything turned out okay. So, what didn't happen? Although she was very stressed in this situation, she didn't go to pieces. Now it's time for the debrief, which is very important. Re-rate the original belief. Amanda is quite proud of herself and re-rates the belief that she can't cope to 30%. For what happened, she writes the kids got to school with no problems, and even when there was a crisis, despite feeling very anxious, I did cope, and didn't go to pieces, which doesn't fit with what I predicted. What can I conclude from this experiment? Amanda writes, I am able to cope a lot better than I thought. Next, do I need any further experiments in light of this one? You will usually need to do more experiments as long-held beliefs soon strengthen again, especially if you go back to using safety behaviours. So Amanda thinks of some more experiments. She has a parents' evening at the school, which she normally goes to with her husband. She was going to avoid it because she was worried that she would not know what to say. So her next experiment will be to go to the parents' evening on her own. So you get the idea, your experiments should face the fears that you avoid, without using safety behaviours. You need to keep working on disproving the underlying beliefs driving your anxiety. Here are some experiment ideas for common beliefs in GAD. For the belief I can't control my worry, so I have to suppress it with distraction, the experiment would be, instead of using distraction, write down the worries and set a time to worry about it. This is the worry postponement that we talked about earlier. For the belief I have to worry about things or something terrible will happen, pick something that you are worrying about. This works best with hypothetical worries. Then when the worry comes, just accept it. Let it pass and do nothing that validates the worry. If the worry is unbearable, try meditation or hypnosis, but do not act on the worry. Afterwards, reflect if the disaster happened. If you're obsessive about routines and overplan everything, experiment by making little changes to your routines and do something without planning. If you worry about worry itself, your belief might be, all this worry will drive me insane. So an experiment could be to really think about a worry. Indulge it, keep focusing on it. It will be really hard at first, but what you'll find is that after a while you get bored of it and it loses its effect. So let's go back to our worry record and see if what we have learned can help Amanda. So in the last column, for diffusion technique, she could use worry postponement, mindfulness meditation, or hypnosis. For what could I do instead? She could manage everything on her own and treat it as a behavioural experiment. If you have any ideas what else she could do, let me know in the comments. So now you should have a good understanding of your anxiety and several tools to manage it. But how often and when should you use them? There is no single answer that is right for everyone. There is a tendency in GAD to overthink things or do things to the extreme. You should not be filling in dozens of the CBT forms every week. Start off with your formulation. You only need to do this once. Then, over the next few days, start listing your saved behaviours and identifying your common thinking errors. Maybe after a week or two, start filling in a few worry thought records each week. When you have a particularly bad worry, use worry postponement or the worry tree. If you choose to use mindfulness meditation or hypnosis, you won't need to use it every day. Maybe a few times a week, or just when your anxiety is very high. Behavioural experiments are the hardest part of CBT, so wait a few weeks or even a couple of months before you start doing them. By that time, you will have got better using the other tools which will help. Hypnosis or meditation can be good tools to use before a behavioural experiment. Go at a speed that suits you. No one will completely overcome their anxiety in a few days or weeks. Anxiety recovery is an incremental process, but these tools and principles can be used for the rest of your life. I use them myself. Once you've got used to using these tools, you don't need to fill in the forms anymore, because you will find that you automatically think and behave the CBT way. So if you get a worry thought, you'll be able to challenge it and decide what is the right behaviour without filling in a form. If you have to do something that you fear, you will treat it as a behavioural experiment, instead of giving into avoidance or other safe behaviours, but you will not need to fill in a behavioural experiment record. I conquered my own anxiety problems a long time ago, but I still use CBT principles and other tools like self-hypnosis in my life when I face challenges. I only wish I'd learned about these things when I was much younger. But hopefully, what you have learned in this video will help you overcome your anxiety problems and will stay with you for the rest of your life. It's taken many hours to make this video, so I would appreciate if you would like, share and subscribe. Keep coming back to this video and let me know from time to time how you are progressing your anxiety, because the best way you can thank me is by showing that my video has made a difference to your life. Take care now.